when you talk about Zen Buddhism and Zen philosophy, it's about acceptance. It's about detachment from ideas of permanence. It's about accepting the dynamic world and expressing gratefulness.
This is Champagne is Also a Band podcast. One songwriter, one song. I'm Sven, your host for a journey into the music of Champaign-Urbana. Recorded in the Blue Box studio with a songwriter from the Champaign-Urbana music scene, past or present. Champagne is Also a Band podcast is proud to be a part of the Champagne Showers Podcast Network. Welcome to Champagne is Also a Band podcast. Today, I have ZENtheRapper, Zen. Welcome to the show.
Yo, yo.
Today, we're going to be listening to his song, According to Legend. And so, without further ado, let's listen to the song.
Hey, Zen. I caught a comet of commotion. Caught a comet of commotion, ain't the island with the ocean. If I had to rate the Bible, it's like 4th or 5th. I came back like the Phoenix did, I'm over with Smith. I'm so cajoling with my pen, approaching the cliff like mountaintop. Spoke to the kid, I'm out the box. On this one way to heaven, my shout Shabbat for a loan from the Reverend. In Babylon, you gotta roam to the west, so I'm down like Rome. I just know it's for better, I made the clouds my home. Finna blow like the weather, if you need me look up. We finna take this shit higher, put your nose in the nexus. I saw the chariots on fire, that shit convinced me it's heaven. I spent 11 assessments, it's so gregarious. They couldn't help but inspect it, now they can't help but respect it. But it's my letter to never, so they can never expect it. They dug me up and found Rosetta collections. Grave diggers found the devil's possessions. No, I'm stretching my blessings, I keep it zen. I can't stress on perfections, I let them vent like I owed them a sweater. But in the end, I just know that I'm better. I'm in the wind, I'm finna blow like the weather. Said this my letter to never. They dug me up and found Rosetta collections. I keep it zen, I can't stress them. Hey, I caught a comet of commotion, ain't the island with the ocean. If I had to rate the Bible, it's like 4th or 5th. I came back like the Phoenix did, I'm over with Smith. I'm so cajoling with my pen, approaching the cliff like mountaintop. Spoke to the kid, I'm out the box. On this one way to heaven, my shout Shabbat for a loan from the Reverend. In Babylon, you gotta roam to the west, so I'm down like Rome. I just know it's for better. Hey, caught the comet, nigga. I said, I caught a comet of commotion, ain't the island with the ocean. If I had to write the Bible, it's like 4th or 5th. I came back like the Phoenix did, I'm over with Smith. I'm so cajoling with my pen, approaching the cliff like mountaintop. Spoke to the kid, I'm out the box. On this one way to heaven, I shot Shabbat for a loan from the Reverend. In Babylon, you gotta roam to the west, so I'm down like Rome. I just know it's for better, I make the clouds my home. Finna blow like the weather, if you need me look up. We finna take this shit, we finna take this shit higher. I said, if you need me look up, I might fly by you. We finna rapper. Hey, I caught the train a locomotive and they asked me to switch the car to fame, a potent potion. Had to pass on that shit like catching vapors from a battery hit. I'm mashing acres, rolling woods, then I'm ball with the spirits. Too fast, Jamaica, and I'm tall like dimensions. I got my own way to get it. On the poem singing mystic, I saw they code name specifics. Them long days, he wrote page of vision. Them home plays like home plate collision. You know I don't play, I won't waste the red. Nigga, code name resistance is a code day. One day you win and play with physics. I'm the wizard of physics, but I won't be specific.
Welcome back. So, my first and favorite question to always ask is, what came first? Was it the music or was it the lyrics?
The music. Definitely the music on this one. It's usually the music. for me. It's a beat called Tomorrow-1. I met Mousepad in Half House when I first moved back here to Champaign at an early, it was either a Cypher Saturday or it might have been an open mic they were doing at that time. And I met him and we exchanged information, and he was saying he's got the studio. At this time I had just moved back and I was like, okay, bet, I need a studio. So I reached out to record. He was looking for people with my style, with like my boom bap kind of style. Because most people, you know, like the trap thing is kind of popular, like the Uzi, Cardi sound is kind of popular, and I do more of like a soulful, like an old school boom bap, slow pace, and he was looking for somebody with that pace. So we started working. He gave me a little small pack of beats, and that was the first one that when I heard it, I was just like, this is exactly what I'm looking for a sound. Yeah. I felt it immediately. Like I said, it's Tomorrow-1. I still remember.
I don't know if I've ever asked this, but what do you look for in a beat generally? Do you generally have like an idea in your mind kind of swirling around and then a beat kind of meets up with that? Or is it more of like the beat inspires the lyrics?
You know, it's more the beat inspires the lyrics. When I approach a beat, I try to come to like a quietness, a calmness in my mind. And then I really try to tap into what the beat is doing. Lately, I'm looking for like a swinginess. I've been looking for like funk elements.
Sure.
So because I know that like I'm starting to learn my strengths more as an artist with my cadence and my delivery. I don't rap necessarily in bars like on the beat. I rap like around the beat and like a swingy kind of pattern. So anything that brings that out. Lately, I'm looking for like uplifting, positive sounds. Trying to bring more of like an intentional vibe to the music, because I used to do like really introspective, reflective, and sometimes that can go to like a sad, maybe like emo kind of place. But now I'm more so looking for, if it's introspective, reflective, more like a powerful kind of sound. Yeah, like that trumpet in this beat definitely spoke to me. More
of the jazz trumpet with a I don't know what it is. I'm always keen on beats that have that soulful, like I almost could imagine this sound in like a smoky jazz club. That kind of,
I hear what you're saying though, that you know there's something to it, that funk,
because it has that jazz style. There is that, can I say, out of the pocket that happens. So and I mean, I think that's what you were saying, like lyrically
it allows for that too,
but like you're like, even though you have that steady boom bap kind of groove, there's also, I was noticing that the way that this beat breaks out is that the accents are in this kind of the 4/4 is separated into, you know, if you look at it as a 8 beats, it's like there's a 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 in it, and that's it has that, I don't know, it's one thing that kind of caught my attention, and then you kind of singing a little bit around and bouncing in and out of the pocket it's just, I don't know, it kind of pulls you in. And so I don't know, I just like that.
I want to have that urge to play with the beat, because I get bored sometimes being on beat, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I want a beat that gives me that, like it's not like not like an experimental sound necessarily, but like that jazziness, that openness, where there's not a prescripted sound that goes on it, kind of thing.
You found this beat, Tomorrow-1, did you say?
Yeah.
When did the words start forming? And then, now here's the other, what came first? Do you have a concept of where you want it to go? Does it start off as a freestyle, or does it start off as like pen to paper and then, you know what I'm saying? Like, how does that form?
Yeah, so I try to keep it real stream of consciousness when I do it. So I get the beat and I get a vibe. I sort of get ideas for imagery that can be invoked, or like feelings that the beat gives without me putting words on top of it. And after I get that, then it's like I go through and I think about what I've been reading, what I've been studying, what I've been experiencing, the things I've been thinking on, dwelling on a little bit. I really start to write a poem in my head. A lot of my songs start with just like a 4-syllable word, or like I caught a comet of commotion with the alliteration. Once I get like I caught a comet of commotion, ate the island with the ocean. I'm starting to like connect these ideas in a real loose way that I've been thinking about. I kind of go through a few of them. I know it's a good one. I always get a chuckle. when I get a good bass, when I get a good lyric, is when it brings me to like where it's like, okay, I'm really saying something kind of interesting here, or like I'm really saying, I try to say things in an ambitious way where you might say it's meaningless, but that's just because it has so much meaning to it, or such a specific kind of meaning.
It's just packed with almost too much meaning.
Yeah,
right. Like,
yeah, exactly.
Multi-interpretations, which
it's always like, what is he even talking about?
That.
And that's what makes me laugh. Where it's like,
was that the first line, the comet of commotion? I mean,
yeah, I caught a comet of commotion.
You started off with that as a lead-in to the rest of the lyrics, or
yeah. And I caught a comet of commotion. What that refers to, it refers to like a little bit of my YouTube shorts on ancient apocalyptic history and some conspiracy. But then also, you know, I read and I study very seriously about history and ancient cosmic religions and things like that. When I say I caught a comet of commotion, it's supposed to invoke imagery of a comet. I don't know if people have seen Ancient Apocalypse by Graham Hancock on Netflix. There's this theory that's pseudo-historical or pseudo-scientific, but it's becoming less so. There's more evidence gathering for it that 10,000, 12,000 years ago, a comet struck Earth, or a series of comets struck Earth, and it set off a bunch of mega floods that reset society, reset our ideas of science and technology. So they're saying like there was like a civilization somewhat in the way that we imagine it now, maybe in a different flavor. Before that time, that's been lost. And so that there was a process of recovery that led to our ideas of history. So that it's this sort of kind of out there idea.
Yeah. No, I was like, well, that seems an awful lot like the Noah's Ark, right?
Yeah,
like that. Like that.
It relates to that because I grew up in a strong Christian, Protestant, Baptist household. So I went to church 2-3 times a week. I got a lot of that. As I've grown up, I identify more as like a spiritual and religious seeker. I
like to think of myself as pretty broad and open in terms of like spirituality in general is like your own understanding of what the divine is, or it is how you relate to the rest of the world on a way that is beyond just physical, sociological. It's this psychological connection, or even spiritual connection to things, to people, to a higher power, if you will. So I don't know. I find it fascinating. Yeah. Anyway, sorry.
Well, no, we
I get excited about.
We have a tendency to like reach for transcendence, to think about these things, try to understand. You know, we can see the stars somewhat. We can see the planets, and we have a tendency to wonder and not be satisfied with seeing. Now we want to go up there. We want to visit. You know, we want to see where we came from, why we're here, why. And we have a tendency to look for that even within the everyday. And that starts to get into like Zen philosophy, specifically the everyday spirituality. That I got a song called, I don't want to get too off topic because I want to come back to that first line. I got a song called Washing Dishes, and it's the idea of doing those tasks that you need to do to get what needs to get done, and almost romanticizing the everyday tasks, but just seeing the beauty in life and being able to do a task, being able to improve with the task, being able to take care of yourself, to set a goal and work towards it.
Some of those repetitive tasks are a perfect time to like, I want to say switch off your mind, but be able to just kind of let everything drift away, and then whatever kind of creeps back in, you can kind of think about.
Real meditative experience.
Yeah.
With that stuff, in different ways, you know, because meditation isn't always just emptying your mind. That's the way it's talked about a lot, or shutting off your thoughts. Meditation, as it's taught, you know, by the ancient masters, and over time, it has different forms, right? And it's thinking about specific things. It's the mantra, just kind of opening up and allowing whatever happens with your mind to happen, and observing. Maybe just to tie back, just to finish what I was saying on I caught a comet of commotion. So when I say I caught a comet of commotion, that doesn't really one-to-one make you think of a comet that caused an ancient apocalypse and reset of society. But the I in I caught a comet of commotion is sort of like an identification with like the soul of the world, with this timeless spirit that sees cyclical history, that stands outside of it while experiencing it. That I caught a comet of commotion. So it's the idea that this comet hit Earth survived, Earth kept going, it caught the comet. And in a way, it's talking about me catching a comet with the way that I study and the thing, and even with the conspiracy theory, comet of commotion, these ideas that may be dangerous, right? Or controversial. But ultimately, I'm trying to invoke an essence of cyclical history and understanding of like timelessness, that what happened yesterday is happening today and is happening tomorrow kind of thing.
And even the nature of, generally, if they're not striking the earth, comets are one of those definite cyclical things that come around in far beyond our own existence, our lifetime, should I say.
Yeah, and these huge cycles.
Yeah, our corporeal lifetime, that is.
Yeah.
I'm curious, let's actually dive into some of the words, because we talked about I caught the comet of commotion, ate the island by the way, I do ruin lyrics, so just just watch me just ate the island with the ocean. If I had to rate the Bible, it's like 4th or 5th. I come back like the Phoenix did. I'm over what's missed. I'm so cajoling with my pen. My tongue is not good at this at all, but I'm just curious. It has this very pointed sense, and then it wanders a little bit in terms of your theme. Like, what was going through your mind as you're writing that, or what were you thinking about?
I hope to find out one day what I was, because I really do try to rely on that, and I've looked into it. The stream of consciousness, free prose, avant-garde style of poetry, of just kind of allowing your mind to make these connections and trusting the connections and just keep going. So it's a way that I connect with my experiences on earth and, you know, my memories and stuff. And then I connect with my studies. I try to do it in a way that's entertaining, that people can follow somewhat, and it feels free, feels lyrically like I'm frolicking a little bit.
Okay.
And things kind of follow.
How long ago was this song written?
This was like the first studio session I had with Mouse. So we that date is somewhere written down, you know, but it was either the end of this past year or the beginning of this year.
Okay. My only reason for asking that is I was thinking, like, is this, you know, a year? Is this like 3 years? Is this 5 years? One of the things that I've at least noticed, even within myself, if there's something that I've written that is either auto writing or something that is, you know, that's spilling out, like, without restraining yourself or filtering yourself, is that being able to look back on what was written, you know, within a timeline, you end up learning. It allows it to change that definition to you, what it means. And I was just curious, like, even though it's been a year, do you find that you get a chance to reinterpret what's coming through, and like how that in your own mind has changed? Yeah,
no, and definitely. The music I've written before, I always feel good when I go back and listen to it and it's sort of evolved its meanings, or I've sort of like subconsciously manifested some of the like ethics or principles I was representing. With this song, when I go back and listen to it now, right now in my life and in my career, I'm sort of shifting towards a focus to scholarship, because I've been out of school since 2019, 4 or 5 years. During that time, I spent a lot of time reading books. I was Zen before I was ZENtheRapper. It wasn't that much of a difference, but I named myself Zen as a conversation with myself, a commitment to defining my own spirituality and searching and studying. I was always, growing up, a good student in school, known to be smart or intelligent. And I had sort of some traumatic experiences right before I began rapping, and this was my way of saying, this is how I resolve to risk sounding arrogant, my torturous genius, right? With a way I can be productive and useful to the world, in a way I can still satisfy my own, you know, desires for expression.
Right.
And it was all that coming together.
You know, it's interesting to think about, you know, your own... Sorry, I feel like this is just completely deviating from the song, and more of like, I'm just fascinated by your philosophy in terms of how you're writing overall, and the way that this. But
that's okay, and a lot, and my music is meant ultimately, you know, I would say sometimes in its pinnacle form, to be like a jump off point for a thought. It's supposed to inspire you to think in different ways and stretch your mind in kind of different ways, so I can engage with these deeper ideas. That's what I want to do. You know what I mean? Ultimately. Yeah. Since we mentioned, you know, that first part of the opening lines, if I had to rate the Bible, it's like 4th or 5th. Yeah. The side question that I wanted to ask, and maybe that's not, I don't mean it in like to be a funny way, but I just wanted to know, is like, what would be your first or second? Yeah. So I I thought about this because when I was releasing the song, I was in a bookstore 2 days before, and I was looking at these religious and spiritual books, and I was gonna make a post with 5 books and then the Bible, right? 4 books and then the Bible. I don't have a definite list. It's more, that lyric is more to get at the spirit of like a scholarly, like braggadocio, like. If I had to rate the Bible, it's like 4th or 5th, and it just to like kind of indicate that, like, you know, I'm sort of versed with these sacred scriptures, with the Bhagavad Gita, good Vedanta text. The Sunyavada is when I'm trying to get into the doctrine of the void or the great emptiness, a Buddhist text. I just really like that level of engagement with the world and with inner spirituality and ideas of transcendence. And it's just to indicate, this is like my world of things. And so when somebody says, like, growing up, like, the Bible is the greatest book, the number one book, if you have that opinion, you can have that opinion. It's not like a combative thing. It's just more like a playful assurance of like my own path. Like, okay, I understand that, but I also understand how the Bible was influenced by, you know, Roman pagan beliefs and by decades and centuries of ritualistic practice and spiritual, you know, expression. And going back to the idea of the comet, how the world has been around for a long time, and there could be 4 or 5 more exact Bibles in the deep, ancient, remote, lost, hidden past, right? It's sort of that entertaining those ideas.
Going to that line of the might shout Shabbat for alone from the Reverend in Babylon, you got to roam to the west, so I'm down like Rome. Where did that section of lines come from? I mean, and maybe I'm grouping them in different ways than maybe you would group them, but those seem to...
Yeah, those go together. There was a book I read called The Cave and the Light, which traces the Western intellectual tradition from Aristotle and Plato up through the scientific revolution, up through today. It claims that we have this very strong legacy that can be traced all the way back to these ideas, Aristotle, the father of science, right, kind of thing. Sure. So when I'm talking about Rome and Babylon, what was the first line in that series?
Shoot. I almost want to add the I'm out the box on this way, one way to heaven.
I'm out the box on this one way to heaven. So, okay. Yeah, from there, that's a good place to start. I'm out the box on this one way to heaven. It's sort of, those lines speak to like a savviness within the material world through my understanding of the spiritual world and of my understanding of history. Mm-hmm. When I say I'm down like Rome, that speaks to my understanding that, like, you know, any great growth, any great change comes with the period of decline. And we see that repeated through history. You got to Rome to the west, talks about like the different legacies of occupation of Jews under Rome, of Christians under Rome, when they were persecuted in different ways, where they had to suppress their religion to the state. I got to Rome to the west. My kind of feelings of like disconnection with Western traditions and Western ideas in light of my own experience in African-American history and global colonial histories and things like that. I just know it's for better. It's just my ultimate faith in like better things and progress, and all these challenges that are for me. Having that kind of mindset of the world, you know, at the school, they call it a growth mindset, a problem solving mindset. So it's being able to assess my situation with a certain savviness and still make claims that I'll have material abundance as well. I like to say a lot, as you got to see with the lyrics, kind of mention different things, and it's supposed to come together as you listen to like multiple songs. You know what I mean?
So I'm just kind of throwing out these different parts, just because I literally think we could spend hours on this if we really wanted to. And
thank you, because I know I'm long-winded, so this will be good. Just you know,
I feel like maybe just me throwing out a few of my interpretation, at least what I'm reading in it, and then kind of just see what your take on it is. This is into that. I want to say you have a repeating section of the I Caught the Comet of Commotion, and it almost serves as like a hook, but this is really, it does feel like a stream of consciousness. So it's that kind of touch point I want to say you come back to. But I want to say the first verse, maybe the put your nose in the nexus, it starts with, I love this line of so they could never expect it. They dug me up and found Rosetta collections. Grave diggers found the devil's possessions. No, I'm stretching my blessings. There's something that kind of hits me with Dig You Up and finding Rosetta Collections is you had talked earlier about how you like using words that have multiple meanings. And I think that, within the idea of the Rosetta Stone, the way that they were able to translate and figure what the other languages were saying was because it was the same story, just told with different words.
Yep.
That's how I was thinking of. And also just the whole that they dig you up as if you've been buried or hidden away, to be found some other time, perhaps in much the same way as like when we create something, we never know our full impact. And then it's always like the fame or even the understanding of something always seems to land after a person dies and is gone or dead and buried. So I was thinking about that little, it's kind of like this weird capsule that you created with just those few lines. Like but I was curious what you were thinking about in terms of that section.
I've used it before in some lyrics, and I'll probably use it again in some lyrics. The metaphor of like of Shakespeare, the bard, the poor man during his life, and now he's studied and revered around the world, right?
Right.
Sort of greatness that's discovered or revealed later or understood later.
Yeah,
and sort of having a peace with that. Like if that is my route, like a lot of things when you talk about Zen Buddhism and Zen philosophy, it's about acceptance. It's about detachment from ideas of permanence. It's about accepting the dynamic world and expressing gratefulness. And a lot of times it gets misinterpreted as like a defeatist kind of philosophy. But that's just because there's a tension between Eastern philosophies and Western philosophies because they have different grounds, different linguistic, metaphysical grounds of understanding, different foundations by which they craft their theories and things. So it's less of a defeatist philosophy and more of a philosophy of wisdom, of understanding. With those lines in particular, the line that I always like, because this is another reason why I like, if I had to rate the Bible, was like 4th to 5th. They dug me up and found Rosetta Collections. Grave diggers found the devil's possessions. I like that line because I feel like the type of lyricist I am, the type of rapper I am, the more like traditionally religious people who listen, they kind of have that half of an ear out for like the satanic references, you know what I mean? For the the evil, occult kind of vibe. And when I say grave diggers found the devil's possession, the way that works and the way that makes me laugh is like grave diggers are people who are looking for serious or negative things. They're digging for grave things. They're putting their mind, their focus on finding negativity. So they found the devil's possessions. But, people who were looking for greatness, who had their mind open, they found something in the dirt, because these orthodox traditional ideas might have you think this thing, this tablet that was found in the dirt, maybe the devil's possession may come from Sheol, may come from hell, right? But that's based on their perspective. It's a recovery to myself of the validity and the ultimate, in my mind, holiness, righteousness of what I'm doing. Like, people will misinterpret it. I have to be okay with that. I can't worry about the results. I got to stay diligently focused on the process, even though I'm aware of possible results.
I'm so cajoling with my pen, approaching the cliff like mountaintops spoke to the kid. I'm out the box, and that leads into on this one way to heaven. And then the might shout Shabbat for a loan from the Reverend. I wanted to add the line of I'm over what's missed.
Yeah, I'm so cajoling with my pen. I'm over what's missed.
I feel like maybe interpretations will definitely be different on the I'm over what's missed, because in my mind, I'm just like, I'm so over about, I think about, FOMO is such a big thing, the fear of missing out, but I'm just like, I'm so over about worrying about missing something, because I'm just like, I need to let myself actually be okay with just not having to be involved in everything. And so to me, sorry that I forgot about that line when I started reading the other one, and I'm just like, I love that. I just love that line because I'm over that.
Yeah, it's sort of like a lot of what I try to do is like an anti-anxiety, not prescription, not pill, but like, you know, it's like a part of the minor mood, anxiety and depression. So I'm over. I came back like the Phoenix did. The Phoenix is the idea of like resurrected from the ashes. So this is like the cyclical world. I came back, and it's this idea of me having this information in my head and still being able to live in the present moment. I'm over with Smiths. I'm not worried about like having even that anxiety about the past. Like, okay, what really happened? What was the real story? What was the real truth? And it's like things happen. We're here now. We can still study it without being, overly obsessive.
Right. It even unlocked a little bit more of the, like, what you're referring to in terms of what was missed is like history in general. Because all we have is we can only look back on evidence or writings or things that other people before us have left.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have a collective memory, which is, even our own memory isn't really accurate for our lifetime. You know what I mean?
Right.
So that's all we really have. There's this idea that there's no such thing. It's kind of like aggressive language, right? There's no such thing as the past. There's no such thing as the future. All we have is the present.
Right.
Like I said, it's a bit of a harsh way to say it, maybe, but it's an interesting idea that all we really have is the manuscripts, what they remembered to write, what lasted through the changes of soil and, buildings or whatever.
I'm so cajoling with my pen, approaching the cliff like mountaintops spoke to the kid.
That's like the Moses imagery.
Okay. I wasn't exactly sure what my brain was telling me about that. When you approach a cliff and then even mountaintops, that's an opportunity to be able to go out and see more than you can actually, like, your brain can actually interpret or put together.
It's almost like that idea of looking out to the stars, that you could see them, but you really can't.
Yeah, like
taking in the whole picture.
I'm out the box, so you're out of those constraints.
This is exciting me. This is kind of why I write in the loose way that I write, because I want people to be able to have a dynamic understanding of the lyrics. It'll hit them differently according to what they're going through and according to where they are in their maturation process or in their understanding of themselves as a person or of me as an artist and what that means for them. So there's no kind of wrong interpretation. The point is that it's supposed to be rich for interpretation.
I'm curious, what is your favorite part of this song?
I like the Phoenix line. That line, I like it a lot because that's sort of like the Rorschach test, like for a listener. Like, 'cause I make music, just the stuff I study is kind of like deep and it's involved. Like, I have a degree in history and I kind of kept going after that sort of thing, but I'm not an academic in a traditional sense. I'm not in a grad school program, so it's maybe hard for people to gauge like my level of understanding or whatever of these topics. But that line, it really, with the least amount of words, points to this idea of a cyclical past, of like this Indian idea of kalpas, of great years, of these incomprehensible amounts of time that have passed and that have the mythical past, the stories of Odysseus and the Greek and Roman mythical history, the idea that, hey, maybe that's not all just imagination, right? Or if it is, it's a legacy of a certain kind of imagination. I came back like the Phoenix did. I'm over with Smiths. There's different ways you can get it. Like that FOMO is sort of like the first one because it speaks to modern, like contemporary moods of anxiety or just having that discussion around anxiety. And then if you understand that the Phoenix, what it represents in like an esoteric sense, represents that rebirth. It even points to Buddhism and specific Buddhist myths and the idea of the lotus emerging out of the water. And it sort of points to all those without being preachy. That's my thing. I want to point to these concepts that I think are really interesting and exciting, and people should be talking about or whatever, but like maybe aren't as popular. And I want to point to them in a way that's illusionary, that people can then kind of pick up and say, well, I want to maybe figure this out for myself a little bit more. Yeah.
I mean,
I don't think illusionary is a word, but I meant to say it as You
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
No, I got it, and actually, I was sure that was that was a word.
Someone was looking right now.
Hopefully.
Check for us.
All right, somebody tweet at me and tell me if that. No, they never do. I do like that word though. Illusionary.
I hope it's a word.
Yeah,
well,
it's gotta be.
I really don't mind if it's not, because as long as you understand what I'm trying to say when I say it in the context, then it's a word enough, right?
I mean, Shakespeare did that all the time, just threw words together. That's the development of language, right? I want to ask this. This last question is like, why did you want to pick this as your favorite song that you wanted to talk about today?
I have a lot of songs that I've written that I like. I have a few songs that I love. You know, I might have one or two that I don't like. I won't tell people that. I like my work. I like what I do. But this is one of my latest releases. This sort of represents a different level in my maturation as an artist. I think I did well technically on this track, with the delivery, with the flow, with the way I wrote the lyrics. It sort of speaks to my ambitions and my hopes in a way that has life going forward, that it can change how I look at it personally. Like I said, it represents where I am as a person, as I'm shifting towards. I'm thinking about, I had this sort of ethic of the independent scholar, of like this kind of rebel with the pen kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking about applying to grad school now, just because I do tend to spend most of my time reading and writing. I've got the Rosetta collections. If someone's listening hard right now, they'll be able to make this connection. But Rosetta Collections is actually what I call my book collection, my library.
Okay.
So if they dug me up and found Rosetta Collections, Gravediggers Found the Devil's Possessions, it's this idea of like my library of sacred literature, of like wisdom literature. It relates to where I see myself going with my artistry a lot. It represents like the ambitions I have with my lyricism well. So that's why it's my favorite. There's that potential, that aspect of hope, of moving forward, of excitement.
Yeah. And
it's got that feel, that uplifting feel. It's got like these elements, like this chant, mantra kind of thing with the repeating, which is an element I'm experimenting with now.
Yeah.
So there's a lot for me to like about it when I listen to it, when I think about it. This song also represents for me my transition back to Champagne, working with Mousepad. This was the first song that we made. Since then, we've made a bunch more songs, and we've got ideas for a project that we're working on. So this song it always reminds me of, you know, of my journey, that when I came here, when I connected with Half House and how we started that. And, you know, something special about our first track together. We've been working, and we intend to do more tracks. We're still doing. So it's shout out Mousepad. I'm glad I was able to, I got some ideas to work with some more house members. You know, me and Whip Trip 6 been talking. Me and Mouse still working. I don't know if Eb knows this, but I'm gonna get him on the track too. I'm gonna get him on the track. He's crazy. But yeah, that's it. According to legend.
Champagne is also a band podcast is proud to support Jubilee Cafe. Jubilee Cafe is a free weekly meal program at Community United Church of Christ, 805 South 6th Street in Champaign, Illinois. Jubilee Cafe serves a home-cooked meal from 5 to 6:30 each Monday. Their mission is to feed hungry people by cooking healthy, delicious meals and by serving their guests restaurant-style with servers waiting on tables. Jubilee Cafe is open to anyone who cares to eat with them. Because food insecurity among students is so high, they serve students as well as others in and around the Champaign-Urbana community who struggle with hunger. Meals are free to all and will be served each Monday evening, located in the accessible lower level of the building at 6th and Daniel Streets in Champaign. For more information on the meal or how to volunteer, go to the Jubilee Cafe CUCC Facebook page or email them at jubilee.cafe@community-ucc.org. That's jubilee.cafe@community-ucc.org. Welcome back. So, Zen, what is your favorite Champaign-Urbana venue?
I've got two answers.
Sure.
I'm going to say Canopy Club is number one, because they have the recognition and they have the frequency. They have a lot of events and a lot of opportunities for people. They need to bring back a consistent open mic, but they do have the Cypher Saturday series. They have bigger acts coming. There's opportunity there for people to actually access fans and access the college, crowd. And then there's this new venue. I'm gonna shout out the Space. That's a newer venue downtown. Mad love for the Space. I was lucky enough to throw a show there this summer, the Summer Solstice show. I brought out some of my friends, including Mousepad, Solo the Poet, Solo the Hun. Shout out Solo, Sonny Teray. And it was just a really me coming back to Champaign at this new venue, being able to bring my friends. It was a really proud moment for myself as an artist and as a man. And this is kind of a cop-out answer because this is going to be the third venue I mentioned. But there's this new art bar thing that's you may have heard of it. You may remember it as I started to describe it. It's this interactive light show club space or gallery space that's opening in Urbana.
Okay, yeah.
That looks exciting.
It's where the Blackbird was, right? Or
It
Nola's.
may be. I'm not even sure where it is. I've seen a few of the Instagram pictures, and I was like, whoa.
I think that's the one. But it's downtown Urbana, right?
Yeah, it's like an interactive light experience kind of. Is their selling point. So that looks exciting. But cool. Canopy for the frequency, the space for my heart, the space in my heart for the space now.
Yeah, I hope that you can do another show because I missed that at the Space.
Yeah, we're gonna do another one. We got to make it. I really like that show at the Space because I was able to kind of come with a theme that matched my artistry, and it opened my eyes to the possibilities of how I can platform my artistry in that way. The Summer Solstice show, I dropped the Sun God Project 2022 on the Summer Solstice, and the Summer Solstice aligns with these ideas that I engage with of cyclical time, of looking up and looking out, of this universal spirituality, these ideas that can cross lines of religious difference or whatever. I want to kind of continue that. I want to I don't want to just throw another show that's ZENtheRapper show. I like the idea of offering a creative experience as an entry point into my style of art or the style of art that my friends present.
I mean, the Space hasn't been around a full year, and so I'm kind of curious one thing, I can't wait for their food to continue, their food continues to evolve, and so hopefully their music, the music at the venue continues to evolve too, and I think that's going to be really exciting.
They got their fingers on the pulse. They change their food up often. It's always good. They're always kind of trying new things with how they present their menu and different acts. Another proud kind of thing, I was the first hip-hop show that was there, and we had talks about how they want to showcase a wider variety of music talent in Champaign because there is that variety available. It's just there's sort of they talked about they had a lot of indie bands, a lot of punk rock kind of sounds, and I learned a little bit about the scene from my conversations with them.
There's something that as if this is some big secret, that I love about Champaign-Urbana is the diversity of available musicians. The one thing that I don't like about Champaign-Urbana is the lack of diverse venues, where it just feels like a bottleneck of, in terms of how many venues we actually have available.
Yeah.
It's a bottleneck in terms of what can actually be seen live out at a venue. So I don't know. Unfortunately, that does take a very strong venue that's willing to put up with trying to host new music, have a talent buyer, get out and do those things. So it's
a risk. It's not a sure thing. And it's we were talking about the growth that takes that acceptance of talent. So you have to have people willing to take losses on that road.
My own mind says, oh gosh, I just trying to put together one show is tiring enough. Yep. But to try to do that week after week or day after day,
it's a lot of work, man. In my little short career putting on shows, it's just a lot of work.
Hopefully, anyone that's ever considered, opening up a venue, do it. Just do it. That's awesome. Please. Let's dive into, you had mentioned that even before you came back to Champaign-Urbana, you started, it's kind of, I should say off mic, and then actually within some of our correspondence, you had mentioned that you started working with Push Soul Collective and Sonny Teray, episode 72, who, you were able to work when you were still in Virginia and he was here, how did you begin working together?
I had ideas of doing rap, of trying rap, starting in 2019, around the time when I was graduating, as I was having alternative ideas of how I wanted to launch my career, my life, post-grad kind of thing. When I was in Virginia, I lived with my sister for a little bit. I had a job as a cable technician, saved some money, got my own place. Now with my own place, I was 23 or so. I was reminded of these thoughts that I had, these deep anxieties of meaning and purpose. And I start writing raps, and I reached out to Sonny because I had Sonny as a TA, and I knew he was a hip hop guy. I knew he made beats, and I always liked his music. He was a lyricist, so it was kind of like his style, his way of music was like my entry point into music. That scholarly kind of activist. He's more explicitly political, writing a rap as an expression of your intelligence in a way. So when I reached out to him, he sent me a beat pack and he gave me good prices on the beats. He worked with me. He was really catalytic for me to get going with the cheap beats, with the sounds where, you know, I didn't have to ask for it. The first beats, I was like, yeah, this is it. And he gave me the feedback that he did a really good job of like coaching me in those early days. And we worked on a project called the Zen tape. Once we were getting ready to put it out, in my mind, I was going to put it on SoundCloud because this is the first step of an artist, right? You go on SoundCloud, right? You create a fan base. Eventually, you start world distribution on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, or whatever. This is just the idea I had. He started bringing me on to meetings with his collective called Push Soul. They were giving me feedback on my music, and I was in Virginia by myself at this point with this new kind of venture I was trying, so that was invaluable too. Hearing other people say, this is what sounds good, this is what maybe could be improved, this is where you're different. Being able to get that feedback and that encouragement and say, you are good. This is something you can work on and you need to work on. Like, keep going. And that genuine, just a real genuine group of guys around my age, you know, all doing the same thing, been doing it for some time. So when I dropped the project, they invited me to formally join the group. And I was a formal member of the group for about a year, maybe 2 years. It's a little fuzzy now. I've since moved on my formal membership, but I still got love for everybody in the group. When you talk about artist development, man, we had weekly meetings that were 3 to 4 hours long at times, every Monday, where we're checking in, we're giving accountability. We're talking about these topics of philosophy and spirituality and politics. And, you know, different guys have their own specific interests, and we're talking about strategies. Like, when you're going to drop, okay, well, you got the cover art, you got this step going, you know, and truthfully, as I said now, these are fond memories of my time as an artist. I was sort of like in artistry school in a way. It was a lot easier back then. Now I sort of struggle with that isolation, having to have more self-assurance in what I'm doing and less feedback and more just like trust in the journey and trust in where I'm at. So, you know, I miss the tightness that we used to have, but it was sort of a necessary step to disconnect formally. But that was artist boot camp, man. For my first couple of years, I really was molded, was fueled, was carved into an artist through that process. Even
being able to offer someone maybe constructive criticism, you get the opportunity to grow as well. Like, these are the things that are good. Why are those things that are good? Then you get to reevaluate how they're good in your own work. I don't know. Yeah, I think collaboration is just key.
It really
to
is.
Like growing, which is funny because I'm so much like be a little mad scientist in my own little world and create sounds and music, and then not really share it with, you know what I mean? Like, be so completely insular in my own music.
So, but you got a cool entry point in the collaboration, because you got, you know, this sort of intimate collaboration, you know, where you can get deep with artists and you can connect instead of with like a fan base, which is kind of alien and not really easy to try to put your head around connecting with. You can really connect with the artist and the art. So I think you have somewhat of an enviable position.
I feel like this kind of leads into the main question of this section, which is, you know, what makes a good music community? You
know, when I started making music, I was in Virginia. I was working with Sonny Terray, who was the lead man of the group. It was really not like a figurehead leadership kind of organization, but he was that voice. Also worked with the members who were in Florida, New York, Chicago, California. So we did the Zoom thing. But in Virginia, I love that scene because there was a real opportunity for artists and musicians to grow outside, to get out of their basements, to perform, to fail publicly, to succeed publicly. By the time I was getting ready to come back here, me and my friends were at least one open mic every week. I was always looking for new ones. I was going to go to one out because I was in the 757, which is Newport News, Norfolk, Virginia Beach, Chesapeake, that area, Hampton, that area. My thing was, okay, let's try to find some open mics in Richmond. Let's try to find some open mics in New York. Just having open mics, what it does is it allows you to work on your craft in public. It allows you to grow in public. It makes it less of a, I'm trying to figure out how to say this, out of the basement kind of thing, literally out of your mom's basement. So it's not just this hidden like talent that you have to try to sort of like be humble about. You can work on how you want to navigate as an artist in public. You can work on your appearance, and then there's sort of an artistic appreciation that develops with people who come. There's the culture around open mics. You always have people who perform, and then people who just come for the show. They can start to appreciate these artists on a deeper level, and that's who can push them out to bigger audiences when they can say, hey, who you listening to? I'm listening to ZENtheRapper, man. He's got these like really cool like philosophical themes, and I've been listening. He's really grown as a performer. Like he used to do these open mics, and it was always okay, but I've really just been seeing how he's grown over time, and I'm excited to see what he's got coming out. Being able to be conversive about artists and having that underground scene. I said a whole lot of words. I went a couple of different directions, but ultimately my answer is having like consistent places to do open mics. I think that is invaluable because that's an entryway from a person who's who's writing poetry, right? Who's journaling, like how I started, who's writing music to, okay, now I can do it out loud. And you have to learn that you have to be in the mic, and you have to learn how to think about how your voice is carrying through speakers and your stage presence and working through the nervousness and this open mic culture, man.
There's something about open mics too that, when you're stuck with 2 to 3 songs, that's it. A
lot of them is one.
Yeah, right. Like
the Mom Spaghetti, you got one shot. You know what I mean?
You really learn how to win over an audience, or what doesn't go over well with an audience, right? Like it's the riskiest unrisky thing to do, right? Like, because in the end, on open mic, it doesn't matter what you win or lose. Right. You're on the stage for a little bit, and then you're off. So either people are sad or they're happy, whatever. But you get to learn to be better, get that one quick impression.
Start to learn about what the industry is, what it means to be an MC, to work on your public speaking and your presence and all that kind of stuff.
There is a definite lack of good open mics, or just enough open mics.
I just feel like there could be more. There's comedy open mics that the Canopy Club does sometimes, and there's a poetry open mic that the Rose Bowl does. But like I said, when I was in Virginia, it was like Douglas Library, just to not forget them. They do a cool open mic every 4th Saturday outside when the weather's nice, so it's always nice practicing performing outside. You could practice for the festival kind of thing. So there's some, but like I said, it was just, I felt like I was in paradise in a sense of Virginia because I had my pick. And when I went on Instagram, I saw my friends were all at, some were at this one, some were at that one. And I just felt like we were doing the thing. We were all getting our punches in. We were all on our training grounds.
I want to know what your take on this is. Like, so what makes a bad music community?
A bad music community, I think there's sort of a competitive streak in musicians and artists and underground. We're hungry. We want like the ultimate goal. If it's not to become famous, we all want to be monetized. We want to be able to at least work, and our work is our ultimate work, our artistry work, and not have to do anything to supplement that. That's kind of like a common thread in the artist dream, right? The musician dream. So there's some competition to that, to saying like, okay, well, I need to have this many fans, this many listeners to be able to sell them this merch, XYZ. You got to get your name, your notoriety up. I think that spirit can be detrimental sometimes, to find a balance between healthy competition and healthy fierceness, aggressiveness, passion, and what you're doing versus coming together. My homie Solo the poet, Solo the Hun, he talks about how like we're really supposed to have our own individual paths as artists, but come together in a public sense in a very free and open way. So when you see a video, you see a few of the artists in town working together. You don't see just videos with just that artist, or you don't see cliques and posses. You see like people coming together and trending towards like not even one ultimate group, but one connecting story where people who live through these times of artist development in their city, or just changing, you know, bands and acts that come through, can sort of have a common narrative, have like a social story that people can relate to and have some legitimacy. So a bad music scene is one where those kind of toxins, those evils kind of stop the collaboration, or, you know, we don't want to be beefing, or it's about artist appreciation. It's ultimate to try to remember that, I think makes good for everybody to be successful.
Champaign is Also a Band podcast is proud to support Exile on Main Street. Exile on Main Street, located in the old train station building at 100 North Chestnut Street in downtown Champaign, has been helping to build record collections since 2004. Carrying a wide array of new and used LPs, CDs, and video games. Exile on Main Street has something for just about any music enthusiast and old-school gaming devotee. Exile also hosts regular free live music shows on its stage, so be sure to check out their Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter pages for the up-to-date details on the next upcoming event. Open 7 days a week, they can be reached by phone at 217-398-MAIN. That's 217-398-6246. Welcome back. So, Zen, what is your favorite non-musical thing or things?
I'm glad you asked. My favorite non-musical thing can be argued that it is musical for me, but it's books. You know, I think back and I remember when I was working at the Boys and Girls Club right around the time when I was graduating from U of I, or I might have just graduated. And I started to look at children's literature, just the way the books are illustrated, the titles, and I would kind of flip through it. And I started to appreciate the quick messages, the way they communicated these really deep, mature messages of emotional maturity or understanding, or aspects of humanity in ways that children could understand in very direct language. And I always had an idea of like, there's something more creative, and there's more creative life to like book covers than we have given credit to. Like, I have an idea of like a book cover gallery or an exhibit, or as a way to decorate or create something. And then I love to read. That's when I was in college and I was deciding my major. I picked history because it gave me the opportunity to read and write. Yeah. I was already pretty much doing that, so I said, that's, you know, if that's the task, then I can fit that in my mind. I can understand that. I can digest that.
So in terms of reading, are you more historical, or is fiction part of that reading part? Or more, I'm just curious if
more historical. When I was young, my first favorite genres were like fantasy and mystery, and I read a lot of fiction, even like mythical history, religious history, sacred history. I feel like that sort of connects to those early interests of imaginative literature.
Historical fiction, I always think, is really interesting. Like there's a fictional, should I say, like storyline that is happening within a historical context that doesn't vary. So
I mean, philosophically, when I was in school, we talked about ideas of history as narrative. I try to monitor myself how I when I go to these different topics, because I know some people are like, okay, like it's like we're maybe not connecting, but I'd say in the 19th century, German historians we're very keen on positivism. That's making history have a reputation of a science, of evidence. Evidence tells a story. You don't deviate from the evidence. But over time, as you go through the years, in the 60s and 70s, you have the countercultural revolutions in the U.S. You have anti-colonial histories, and you have this idea that history is a narrative construction. History is a narrative construction. History is not the past in this true purity. History is just the way we remember the past, the way the past gets remembered through what's available, through the available documents. And so there's this idea that all of history is fictionalized. So that's why I do, even though I haven't read much historical fiction, I appreciate that genre, and I will read, as I go through life, that directness, attacking the criticism head on, like, because it kind of started as a criticism, like history is not a science, it's a narrative, it's a reflection of bias and the historian's wishes and urges.
Sorry, I wanted to back up on when you said anti-colonialism, like erasing the idea that colonialism is bad, or just being I'm just curious. I'm curious, like, because there is
it's funny because it may be what that term means. It's not what I meant to say. I meant to say post-colonial. Okay.
Which is, because I was like, that'd be, I mean,
it's kind of an interesting thing to think about.
Right.
Anti-colonial, but I like the big histories, these ideas of, there's these ages, this age of exploration, the scientific revolution, these epochs that we kind of travel through, and I like engaging with them and kind of deconstructing them and think of them as narrative and as bias or whatever.
When you use the term, whether it's, it wasn't what you meant, the anti-colonialism, but I was just thinking about how when I first began going to school, colonialism was like a good thing.
Yeah.
And now
it's like result of hard work and kind of way it was framed, sort of. And now it's like this evil tasting, non-human sort of thing.
Yeah, well, and it was always presented as if it was like, oh, we're colonizing, we're making a place better. It's kind of like
doing God's work.
I mean, I feel like I could draw some heat for saying this, but I mean, I feel like the word gentrification is going to have that in the future. I mean, it already has a little bit, but it will develops. It will have a certain. It will have a negative. I feel like that's, if it isn't already negative, it's heading there. But I mean, I if I'm drawing a strong parallel, that's because I am. But
it's sort of making that shift already. There's people who. It's funny you say gentrification. This is like a real deep cut for any of my family or people who are really listening out here. Like when I used to be active on Snapchat, I used to just do this thing where I would go to like a nice restaurant or coffee shop on campus, and I would say, is this gentrification? Like, is this good? Is this bad? Like, are we supposed to be happy about this? Is this like harmful to people? So I think that shift is sort of happening. I see the parallel.
Our own language, as it shifts, and the way that we interpret certain words, as if that isn't part of our own confirmation bias in some ways too. Is, either we hold on to that word as meaning something good, or we accept the overall societal change that, hey, this is
just the way it is now.
Yeah,
kind of. Yeah.
Do you have a favorite book, or what are you really into these days?
Do I have a favorite book? I have books that I remember. I have a few memorable books. I mentioned The Cave in the Light. That was a book that sort of sticks out in my memory as like an idea I want to engage with and keep coming back to and keep kind of refining and bouncing its ideas with other books. There's another book, A Short History of the World. This is when I was naming myself Zen. I read this book, A Short History of the World, and I actually didn't like the book ultimately. When I finished it, I thought it was incredibly Eurocentric, and I thought it treated the story of exploration and colonialism as the narrative of world history in a way that it didn't taste good to me. I didn't like it for that reason. But in this book, that's when I encountered the word Zen, the idea of Zen philosophy, reading about the Taoist sages, the Buddhist, the Hindu sages, in the context of the axial age, or this age where period of like 1,000 years or so, where all the religions sort of got their figureheads or their main prophets, their main scriptures. So that book is The Little History of the World. Even though I didn't like it, that's where I kind of, the takeaway was I'm going to start going by Zen after reading that, just because of my identification with that story of the sages and that sort of that character that was like became my rap character at the time. Just to kind of cap that answer off, lately I've been reading more explicitly about Buddhism, Vedanta, Zen, Taoism. I'm considering going to school to study these topics as a scholar specifically. It's sort of like, for me, especially with the way I write and my art, I don't like to be too on the nose with anything. So I've sort of had this resistance since I named myself Zen to like, I don't want to become Buddhist. I don't want to become a Zen, like specifically. I want to engage with these ideas, but it's like, I don't want to like, I go by Zen. I don't want to also, I don't know. There has to be some kind of misdirection for me to like it. Becoming Buddhist, even though I identify a lot with some ideas of Buddhism and ideas of Taoism and Zen, isn't what I want. But maybe that can be how I am a scholar. I can engage with these ideas because I'm clearly interested in them. I'm trying to represent them in a artful way, in a way that's kind of sort of ambitious and new. It's sort of like that idea of getting out of the basement. I got to legitimize it, write things that people will actually be able to read, and instead of filling my notebooks kind of thing.
Zen, thank you for being on the show and coming all the way out here and telling me about your song According to Legend and just the process. And I've really enjoyed chatting with you. So it's been a pleasure. So thank you for being on the show.
Well, thanks. Thank you for having me. Thank you for listening to Champagne is Also a Band podcast. This is Zen the Rapper reminding you, great music is out there. Go find it where you live.
That's a wrap.
Champagne is also a band.
You almost have an NPR voice. It's so good.
Studio sound bigger on the inside.